session. I'll talk about some very specific things about Wayne, some broader things about the law school application process, and hopefully put you all in a position to make an informed choice about whether or not Wayne Law is a good fit for you as you continue to explore your law school options. So, for the uninitiated, my name is Justin Williams. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions and Diversity Recruitment here at Wayne State University Law School. So let's just get right to it. I think that the central question to all of this is why us, right? Why should you choose Wayne Law? What makes us special and unique? What's the reason, right, for applying and potentially attending Wayne Law if admitted? I think it starts with value. I talk a lot to students about legal education being a value equation, right? You want to make sure you're getting the right legal education at the right price so that you can take that next step in your career. Essentially, if you're going to law school full time, you're making a 3-year bet that you are better for having sacrificed your earning potential in the marketplace for this particular credential. And so, in the case of Wayne, that is a largely accurate, right, or largely a value proposition that weighs heavily in our favor. So I think it starts with our world-class faculty. They've been called in to share their expertise on all manner of things, from COVID-19, right, to gerrymandering, antitrust issues, to vaccination, right? Our faculty have been in those conversations and been on prominent stages. And that is a marker of a strong and meaningful faculty to be tapped for those kinds of conversations and experiences. And you get the full weight of that when you are a student at Wayne Law. I think the value piece, again, goes back to us being ranked as a best value law school for I think 7 years now. Us being ranked number 83 overall in the U.S. News and World Report rankings was a 17 spot jump, right? This proves that the investments we're making in our program are paying off, and that's that rising national profile, right? I think the other number that I'm really excited about and interested in is the fact that we're ranked, and this is by Spivey Consulting, using some law school transparency data. We're the number 22 law school with the lowest debt to starting income ratio. So when you look at what it will cost you to get our education versus what you will earn when you start, we're ranked up there pretty high as far as law schools go, and we're really proud of that. I think some of that comes from the cost of our legal education, which for the 2020-2021 academic year was around $33,000 a year, tuition and fees. We did not increase our tuition, right, over the last year. And then we also award scholarships at a pretty high clip. So you're looking at roughly annually about $7 million worth of scholarships are awarded to the folks we choose to admit. So when you think about the money you'll spend versus the money you'll make, the money you'll be awarded in scholarships versus the cost of your education, plus the quality of that education and our strength and rising national profile, Wayne Law is a really good fit for a lot of students, and it could be you. I think the other piece is the ability to make different choices about how you approach your legal education. Degree path flexibility. I know there are some of you out there who are being a little bit more thoughtful about how you spend your money and how you spend your time. And so maybe you're saying, I'd like to pursue my legal education, but I also want to keep working as long as my job will have me, right? And we've got options in terms of our curriculum that will allow you to be able to do that. So we offer a full-time day enrollment program, right, which is that traditional 3-year path to completion of law school. We also offer a part-time evening program, which is a little different, right, designed to support those who either need to work during the day or have other responsibilities that would make it challenging for them to pursue their legal education full-time. That's a part-time evening program. The courses would be offered after traditional working hours. So you think, from 5 to 9-ish, right, is when the courses would be offered. So after that working hour, right, so 5-ish, 5:30, right, till about 9 or so, you could have class during that window. It's typically fewer classes, right? So you're talking maybe 2 or 3 courses during a semester, so that you can still complete that degree in a reasonable amount of time. For most students who are doing the part-time evening program, takes them about 4 years or so, but depending on how they approach the course load and how they approach managing the work. There's also a combined day evening program, right? So for those of you who've got a little bit more flexibility in their schedule, but still need to carve out some space to manage other responsibilities, right? There's that combined day evening program, which will have you take a course or two during the daytime and then a course or two in the evening. If you're really aggressive, you can get that program done in 3 years. Again, for most students, it's a 3.5 or 4 year commitment if you choose to go that route. Uh, the other piece of this puzzle, and I think students again are seeking to extract maximum value from this experience, are the offerings that we have as it relates to dual degrees. So we do offer a JD program that will afford you the opportunity to pursue master's degrees across several disciplines. So you can receive your master's in criminal justice or your MBA or master's in dispute resolution, economics, history, or political science. So you've got a pretty good set of options there. If you're looking at making this a 2-for-1 deal, you would complete that program in roughly 4 years. To make that program work, you'd have 4 courses that satisfy credits in both programs, right? And so you would save some time there and get those 2 degrees in 4 years. So that's absolutely something to think about if you're, again, trying to broaden your marketability and specialize in ways maybe that are a little different than some of your peers. So let's talk about beyond the classroom, right? Why Wayne Law beyond the classroom? What do we offer? And I think there are a lot of different options here. I think it starts with practical training, right? How do you take that theory that you're learning in the classroom and put it into practice? And I think that starts with our clinical program, our externships, our internships, all really good options and opportunities for you to be able to take, again, what you're learning in the classroom and expand it into a space where you're taking that and putting it into practice. So in terms of clinical options, we offer our asylum and immigration law clinic, some new and exciting stuff like the immigration appellate advocacy clinic. So if you're thinking about asylum and immigration law, if you're thinking about immigration law generally, you've got 2 different clinical opportunities to really flex and build that muscle and gain some professional cachet in that space. There's our business and community law clinic, our appeal and post-conviction advocacy clinic, our disability law clinic and legal advocacy for people with cancer clinic, and then our community advocacy clinic, which is another new and exciting clinical option we've started offering that gets you the opportunity to go out into the community and do that community level advocacy work that maybe drew you to the practice of law generally, right? So offering our students the opportunity to take that thing that they wrote about in their personal statement, right, that they're so passionate about in terms of being a good steward of the community and taking their knowledge and their tools and helping the place that they came from, and really giving you the opportunity to put it into practice. I think another really cool tool, and this is, sort of moving into a different space. So if you're interested in business law or corporate law, there's something called the Corporate Counsel Externship Program. It's a really cool program where you will be placed in the corporate offices or the corporate counsel office of any number of different corporations with which Wayne Law has a relationship, and you'll use that semester to learn more about how corporate counsel offices work, right? Build some professional connections and relationships, and build out some new skills. And I think it's a really unique program, specifically because externships typically favor working in the nonprofit or the government space, right? But this is a really cool option for students who are looking to get some exposure to corporate and or business law and need to get a foot in the door. So that externship program presents that opportunity. And again, a great tool for you to learn more about that area of the law. Now, there's also our free legal aid clinic, commonly known as FLAC in the halls of Wayne Law. So the free legal aid clinic is a student-run 501c3 nonprofit legal aid organization. Was established by a group of intrepid Wayne Law students in 1965. Typically, the kinds of work that finds a home there is in elder and family law. So if you're thinking about that space, That's a really good opportunity for you to get some exposure to that as well. We also have the traditional judicial externship. So for those of you who are thinking about doing that kind of work, want to become better writers, researchers, judicial externships will definitely help you get that exposure and learn those things or become better at those things. There's also two different levels of public service externship. So we've got our traditional public service externship, which again sort of speaks directly to working with these public service oriented organizations in a semester. But there's also our public service two, or a second level, right, of that public service externship program, which is focused a lot more on social justice lawyering. So when you think about that community advocacy clinic, you think about this public service externship too, and that social justice piece. If that is something that speaks to you, you've got these different avenues to really pursue that passion and push that button for yourself here at Wayne Law. So let's talk about co-curriculars, right? What can I do outside the classroom that will enhance my education and allow me to continue to build skills? So I think that most students, when they think about co-curriculars in law school space, they're thinking about moot court and mock trial. Of course, we have those programs and are proud of the work that our students do there. There's also our Jessup International Law Moot Court team, right? So if you're thinking about moving into the international law space or exploring that specifically, that Jessup International Law Moot Court program will afford you the opportunity to flex that muscle and to continue to develop that skill set and that expertise. There's also our Jaffe transactional law competition. So if you're thinking about being in that space, this will be a competition that you can participate in as a student that will allow you to sort of measure yourself against your peers in a very real and direct way. And it's a great opportunity for students who are thinking about that space. Of course, we have the slate of journals that you all may know and understand. So we have our flagship journal, the Wayne Law Review. Then we also offer the Journal of Law and Society and Journal of Business Law. So if that interests you, again, we've got the journal program that will offer you the opportunity to, again, become better writers, better fact checkers and citers, right? Doing all of those things that you would do as a member of a journal, even potentially get published, right? As a student, because that's definitely on the table. So those options are out there for you. But there are also the centers and institutes that are associated with Wayne Law. Thinking about the Damon J. Keith Center for Civil Rights. It's named for Judge Damon J. Keith, a distinguished alum of Wayne Law, who passed about 2 years ago now. And it speaks to, it's more of an outward facing thing, right? So it addresses the civil rights needs of Southeast Michigan and the nation by promoting that the educational, economic, and political power of underrepresented communities in urban settings, right? We sort of see it as a place where civil rights teaching, research, and action meet, and it also fuels that next generation of civil rights leaders through initiatives like the Detroit Equity Action Lab. They just, speaking of the Detroit Equity Action Lab, they just acquired a new director, Asandi Connor, who is fantastic, a total rock star, and we're really excited about what she's going to bring to the table. If you don't know her, you should definitely Google her, because she's a huge asset to Deal and the Keith Center and Wayne Law in general. There's also the Levin Center at Wayne Law. So the Levin Center is actually named for former U.S. Senator Carl Levin, who, if you're lucky enough, you'll see moving around our building on occasion. Is definitely a treat, as he is literal living political history. There's very little that's happened in this country on a political scale in the last 60 years, right, that he doesn't know something about or have some connection to. But the center really does educate future attorney, business leaders, legislators, and public servants on the role that oversight plays in public and private institutions, and how we can use oversight as an instrument for change. And lots of opportunity for students comes out of that, right? So we send students every year to DC to work on the Congressional Oversight Committee, and that's a role and opportunities that are typically sort of carved out, or you typically find these Ivy League students in those roles. But because of our connection with Senator Levin and his sort of advocacy for Wayne Law and the students that we have, you'll be a Wayne Law student in these spaces with some of the brightest minds in the country, proving that talent comes from a lot of different places, right? And that we've got talented students at Wayne Law who are just as capable and just as able of making that impact and being contributors in that space. So you can spend that summer there with the oversight committee doing awesome things. It's an opportunity that's carved out for a few, right? Not everybody gets it, but if you are interested in it, you can absolutely apply for that as a part of the Levin Center experience. There's also the Program for International Legal Studies, or PILS. It's like the hub of all international law activity at Wayne Law, right? So when you think about international law and all of the things it touches, all of the people that are connected to it, right? That's sort of our hub, is the Program for International Legal Studies. It's got study abroad programs, fellowships, right? Where you can get that sort of firsthand experience of other nations' legal systems and approaches to legal education. But it's also about research, right? Showcasing faculty scholarship and bringing in, right, outside experts. So hosting speakers who, scholars, policymakers, right? Practicing international lawyers who come to our law school to talk about what's really happening in international law. So that's program is run by Greg Fox. He's one of our faculty and an expert in the space, and a huge advocate for our students to get opportunities in this space, right, and to become truly cosmopolitan lawyers. So there's a little bit more about the centers and the institutes that we have. There's also our robust sort of student life, right? We're a living, breathing law school community with 30 plus different student orgs and activities. I like to say that, law school is where everybody sort of finds their tribe, right? And if there's something about you that is unique, there's probably a student organization that speaks to it. If that organization doesn't exist, you can absolutely establish it and create that space yourself. But the reason that you're coming to law school, right, at the end of the day is because you want a job, right? So let's talk about outcomes and careers. In the 2019 jobs report, which you can find on our website, you'll learn a little bit about where our students are going and the kinds of opportunities that they're getting. So 114 of our 133 grads in 2019 had bar passage required or JD Advantage jobs, right? So those jobs that you go to law school to get, our students at large are getting those. We've got some students who maybe found themselves in a position where they, didn't have a job yet. About 11 or so of those students were out there. But our career services, our career and professional development office continued to work with those students to help them find opportunities and fill those gaps in for them so they can get the kind of jobs that they'd be happy about and proud of. I think one of the things that we're the most proud of is in the most recent bar exam results, we were second in the state with a 91% first time bar passage rate, which is phenomenal, right? So, when you're talking about what happens post-graduation, what are your chances of being successful on the bar exam, attending Wayne? Obviously, you've got a really good chance so long as you apply yourself and sort of work within the frameworks that exist for you, lean on and rely on the resources that we have. I think you'll find yourself in a position where you're satisfied with outcomes on all fronts. So in terms of jobs and then also in terms of success on the bar exam. So why Wayne Law? Detroit too. So very often, when people talk about where they want to go to law school, they're looking for specific things. They want to be near the big law firms, right? Near the courthouses, near the big companies and the nonprofits and the government agencies. When they start telling me, hey, Chicago has this, I say, Detroit too. When people say, I want to live in New York because I want to be near this. And I say, well, we got that in Detroit too. Right. I want to be near where it's all happening. And I say, well, it's happening in Detroit too. And so I think it's really important that when you consider where you want to go to law school, you think about where you want to live and practice and potentially make a home. And I think a lot of great things are happening in the city of Detroit, a lot of momentum that feels positive and feels like it's moving the city forward is out there right now. And it's an exciting place to be and an exciting time to be there. So, I think that matters, right? We're located in what's known as Midtown Detroit. So it's a part of that area where a lot of the growth is happening. Things are popping up around us every day. The Detroit Pistons just built a brand new, shiny, sparkly practice facility literally around the corner from our law school building, which is pretty cool. And we're on a corridor where a lot of exciting development is happening. So if you're thinking about that sort of space and wanting to be in a part of in a town where that kind of excitement is happening, Detroit has it. So my rule of thumb for people is whatever you can get somewhere else, you can get in Detroit too, and that's as good a reason as any to choose Detroit to make your home and Wayne Law to be the law school that you pursue. So taking a step back and really thinking about the application process broadly, I think students want to know more than anything, like what is Wayne Law looking for in an applicant? What's the perfect Wayne Law student? Somebody hasn't asked that question already. You're certainly going to ask it in our Q&A session. So hopefully I'll provide some meaningful insight here about what we are looking for and what matters to us. So, I think that our baseline evaluation is pretty straightforward, right? So we're looking for a few things. I think the first question that we're asking when we evaluate an applicant is how confident are we that if we admit this person that they can compete academically with the students they'll be admitted with and the ones that are in our building already, right? Are they somebody who, based on their profile, is going to be able to come in here and navigate our program, understanding the rigor and challenges it presents? And so that evaluation is based primarily on a few things. I think the leading factors are your performance on the LSAT and in your performance in undergrad, right? So your LSAT and your GPA, but also letters of recommendation from professors or faculty who've had you in the classroom can also shed some meaningful insight onto how you show up in the classroom and your ability to perform in challenging academic settings, right? The second piece of the puzzle is really about what's the value add for us as an institution beyond your ability to be a good student. And how do we get there, right? Well, we're looking at your personality, your accomplishments, your character, and your fitness, right? I think that the pieces that are central to that are your personal statement, right? So something that gives us an understanding of who you are and why you're here. Your resume, right? What experiences have you pursued outside the classroom? What are you passionate about? What have you invested yourself in beyond being a student that you felt like you needed to share with us in that resume in that chronological sort of sense, right? Letters of recommendation can also play a role here as well, and in that they help us get a better understanding of who you are as a person, right? Hopefully your recommenders will know enough about you, right, to be able to share some things about you that we can't get from other parts of the application in that letter of recommendation just based on their assessment of you. And then any sort of addenda that you may submit with your application. So if there's some character and fitness stuff you need to help us better understand, right, or provide some context for. If there are some things about the application that maybe you think are question marks for us that you want to help us better understand. So maybe you had a semester of poor academic performance that there was a reason for, or maybe you're historically not a great test taker, but you perform better in the classroom, right? So any addenda that help us understand things that might need a little bit more context will also be considered in that space. Now, the last piece to this puzzle is a little bit less about sort of you and a little bit more about us and the goals that we've set for ourselves and how the applicant pool shapes up. So you are being evaluated against those backdrops, right? So what we hope to establish and create with the class, what we're hoping to build in terms of class size, right? The academic credentials of the class, demographics, but also how you fare in relation to your peers in the applicant pool. How did your application stack up and rank in that regard as well? So we'll look at all of these things together and decide, right, whether or not we would like to invite you to be a part of our class at Wayne Law for that academic cycle. So talking a little bit about the elements of the application and the timeline, we talked a little bit about those things, but maybe a little bit more detail about exactly what some of those pieces are would be helpful here. So the central aspect of the application is the online application itself. That's something that you can access via LSAC, right? The Law School Admissions Council. If you are not familiar with them and you are here, I would encourage you to, when you leave this conversation, to go to lsac.org and become familiar with them. They are the the arbiters of this process, right? They manage part of it for us as the law school, specifically the applications part. You will have to submit your application through them, but there will be that online application. There'll also be a personal statement, at least 2 pages. I think 2 pages is probably the sweet spot for most. Some students tend to have longer personal statements. That is in bounds. But I think 2 pages is probably the sweet spot. 3 pages is, really taking you to a place where you've got something important to say. I think if you're looking at more than 3 pages, you might want to ask yourself, is there anything here that isn't absolutely necessary that I need to share, right? Where are the places where I can make cuts and trim to be more concise and clear? There's also the need for a resume. I think for most students, most applicants, 1 page is good enough. 2 pages is probably the cap for most students. If you've got a long professional career, or you've been out of undergrad for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and you've got a long professional career, then a longer resume is fine. Don't feel obligated to change it. The length of your resume is not going to impact the decision we make on you as an applicant. So I will worry less about the length, right, and be more focused on making sure that I've got the chronological order of the things that I've done and highlight the things that I feel like may be more relevant to the pursuit of legal education and others. There's the letters of recommendation as well. So Wayne requires at least 2 letters of recommendation, but no more than 4. The caveat to all of this, right, a qualifier is for the students who are applying to Wayne Law 2 years or less after, from their graduation from undergrad, right? So if you graduated 2 years ago or less, at least one of your letters of recommendation will have to come from somebody who taught you in a classroom. A professor will need to write a letter of recommendation for you. If you are more than 2 years away, that is not a requirement, but 2 years or less, it's absolutely a requirement. So if you're thinking about that, just bear that in mind as you go through this process. There are also, again, any addenda that you may submit if those apply to you. And then another central piece of the application puzzle would be your credential assembly service report, which is provided to us by LSAC. That will include your undergraduate GPA and your transcripts, any education that you have received post high school, right? So if you've even if you've been in a graduate program, right, we need to see all of those transcripts and they'll be uploaded into your credential assembly service report. The only grades that are used to calculate the GPA that drives law school decision making is your undergraduate GPA or your undergraduate grades. But we do like to see those graduate level transcripts as well, but they do not change your GPA. So if one of the questions out there is, do you all use graduate level grades to calculate the GPA? No, we do not. LSAC does not do that either. It's one number that comes from your undergraduate academic performance. That'll also include all of the LSAT scores from, I believe, the last 5 years, right? So if you've taken the LSAT multiple times, we'll see all of those scores. The one score that we use to make the decision is the highest score. We do pay attention to trends in performance, but ultimately the highest score is the one that we use to inform our decision making. All right, so some things for you all to think about as you go through the process of applying and the timeline. I think it's really important to consider when you apply, right, and to apply as early as you possibly can, no sooner than you're prepared to apply, but no later than that, and be aware of the timelines that are out there, right? So for Wayne Law, our application has been open since September 1. And we'll continue to accept applications through the summer, but there's a deadline in between there, our priority scholarship deadline, right, of March 15th. And what that deadline is a point at which you should have your submitted materials to us complete to get the fullest consideration for scholarship dollars. So March 15th is that date. We will still consider you for a scholarship opportunity after that date. It'll just be based more on what we have left, right, in our scholarship budget, as opposed to, just the merit piece of the puzzle. that applies if you submit your materials before, on or before that March 15th date. You want to own the parts of this process that you can control, right? There are things about this that can't be undone, right? You can't go back and change your undergraduate grades. It's just not a part of the equation at this point. So you just want to own the parts of the process that you have some control over. You want to be thorough, be thoughtful, and make the best case and present the best version of you. And if you haven't planned before, this is the time to start planning a process. Plan this part, right? Be thoughtful, sit down and really think through the pieces that you'll need, right? What you want those things to be and how you can make that best case for yourself and put forth the best face for you so that law schools are operating with the right set of information and facts about you to make that informed decision about your candidacy to apply to and attend their law school. So let's talk money, dollars and cents. So there are some costs associated with this process that you all should be aware of, but there are some ways sort of to hack that process too, right? So many schools will charge a law school application fee. Wayne Law does not, so it does not cost you to apply. We do not charge you to apply to Wayne Law, but there are some schools that do. So if you're considering applying to other places and they do charge a fee, make sure that as a hack to that, you are requesting a fee waiver, right? So every school, every time, as you can see there, make sure you're asking at every school that you apply to that charges an application fee, what you need to do to be awarded a fee waiver. There may be a step that they ask you to take, or they may just give it to you because you asked, but it's absolutely worth asking to do that. And then there are the costs associated with doing business with LSAC, right? So the cost of taking the LSAT and the Credential Assembly Service costs, and those numbers are out there for you. So you'll see a link there that'll take you to LSAC's page that captures those costs for you. But LSAC also offers a fee waiver program, right? That fee waiver program is need-based. So if you are somebody who feels that they are in need and need to have that fee waived, have those associated fees waived, you can make that request to LSAC. What you get if they do grant that fee waiver for you, at my last check, is 2 instances of the LSAT, 1 instance of the LSAT writing portion, a CAS registration fee, which will include the letter of recommendation service and access to the electronic applications for all LSAC's law schools, and then 6 Credential Assembly Service reports. So the report itself is generated by the Credential Assembly Service. You do have to pay to have that sent to the law schools you apply to. I believe at last check it was like $45. So you can see the value in having 6 of those covered already is tremendous. So you make sure that you do request that fee waiver from LSAC if it is something that you would like. If they deny you, try to appeal it. I know there is an appeals process. So make sure that you're exhausting your options in terms of getting those things paid for. And then I think the other thing to think about too are seat deposits. So once you start getting those offers of admission, law schools are going to ask you at a certain point to submit a seat deposit to secure your seat in the class. It gives us as institutions some insight into who's likely to join us. And it just assures you that your seat in the class and your opportunity will remain at that institution. There is no way around seat deposits. I've never heard of a school waiving a seat deposit. So make sure that you are budgeting for that. Wayne Law's total seat deposit is $500, $200 initially, and then another $300 a little later in the summer. And so just be prepared for that, right? And start putting some money away for that purpose, because you are unlikely to get a waiver for that in the process. I know we wouldn't offer one, and I'm not sure if your schools would, but I have not heard of it being a thing that happens. So just be prepared for that piece of the puzzle. I also want to put this out there for those of you who are being cost conscious and thinking about LSAT prep. So LSAC has partnered with Khan Academy, the online learning platform, and put together a free LSAT prep program. It is available at khanacademy.org/LSAT. Absolutely take advantage of that if you're thinking about being cost efficient and cost conscious in your LSAT prep process. So some other things to think about when you're thinking about paying for law school. The first piece that I typically advise students is that, when you're thinking about paying for law school, the money usually comes out of two buckets, right? The first bucket are the scholarship dollars you're awarded at the time of admission, right? So most schools offer scholarship in two ways, either merit-based or need-based. Wayne Law has a merit-based scholarship program, so it's largely focused on your achievement academically. So both the LSAT score and the GPA. The stronger the LSAT score, the stronger the GPA, the stronger the scholarship package will be. So I guess to put it into sort of some real-world terms, if you want to think about the medians that we're trying to achieve for our incoming class, the closer you are to those medians, if you meet or exceed those, you'll get a really strong scholarship offer. If you bring one of those medians and maybe not the other, you'll still get a competitive scholarship offer, but just maybe wouldn't be as strong as the offer would be if you had brought both of those medians. If you don't bring either median, there's a chance we could admit you, but scholarship dollars could be harder to come by. If you are taking notes at all and you want to know what the median LSAT and GPA targets are for this year's class, they are a 160 LSAT score and a 3.65 GPA. I repeat, Wayne Law's target medians for its incoming class for 2021, a 3.65 GPA and a 160 LSAT score. So keep those numbers in mind. The closer you are to those numbers, the better your chances of being awarded scholarship. Again, there are some institutions that take need into effect and consideration in their process. Most of our students are at Wayne Law on a combination of scholarship dollars and that second big bucket that I alluded to earlier, federal loan dollars, right? So there are federal loans available that will help support your pursuit professional graduate education. Some of those federal dollars are predicated on having a clean credit history. So I encourage all students who are thinking about law school and believe they may need to take out federal loans to help support their legal education to pull their credit history, see what's on there and get it cleaned up so that you can be awarded any dollars that you need to pursue the education. And again, you won't have to worry about being rejected or having to figure out something else or an alternative to pay for your education because your loans didn't come through. The other piece that I encourage students to think about is to get a handle on how much money practicing lawyers actually make. I think there's a sort of a little bit of a disconnect, right, between what most lawyers are making and what most people think lawyers make. And the numbers are not always what you think they are. I think NALP, the National Association of Law Placement, does a really good job of putting those numbers into perspective. But there are absolutely working class lawyers, right, who are, our everyday working stiffs, right, who are just sort of, making enough money to pay their bills and service their debt. Not everybody's making, $200,000 a year, right? There are fewer of those jobs out there, fewer of those jobs in the marketplace. So if your presumption is that you're going to come in and get one of those plum jobs, just be thoughtful about that choice and recognize that that may not be the case, and that you may have some debt to service that makes it a challenge, right, for you to be able to survive on what you may get in a salary. So being thoughtful about that piece of the puzzle. So I think those are the big pieces in terms of scholarship dollars. There are always those who are in these chat rooms who are curious about Wayne Law's Damon J. Keith Scholarship Program. So I'll talk a little bit about that. The Damon J. Keith Scholarship Program is pretty straightforward. It's named in honor of Judge Keith, who the Damon J. Keith Center was named after as well. But the scholarship is available to students who apply to Wayne Law and satisfy a particular set of criteria, right? So either you've attended school in the city of Detroit, public school in the city of Detroit, or private parochial or charter school in Detroit, so long as you lived in Detroit when you also attended that school, went to an HBCU, an HSI, a tribal college or university, right? So if any of those criteria apply to you, you would be considered eligible for that scholarship. And then if you are admitted, you would be considered for the scholarship in amounts up to full tuition based on availability of funding at the time you apply, right? There is no second step. There's nothing else you have to do, right? To be eligible for the scholarship, you just have to apply and satisfy and meet those criteria and then be admitted to the law school. And based on budget, you could be awarded that scholarship as a part of your package and really help offset the cost of your legal education. So those are the things that I think you should be thinking about in terms of paying for law school and just putting some things out there for you all to consider. So this feels like a good place to stop sharing video and to get into the Q&A portion of this evening. Looks like we've got some activity in my Q&A box, so I'll get right into that. What is the average financial aid per student per year? I'm going to be transparent and share that I don't know what that number is off the top of my head, but if that's something that you're really curious about, send us an email and we can get that information to you. Looks like, is there a dual degree major that makes you more successful as a lawyer over another? I don't think that there's one that will make you more successful as a lawyer over another. I think there are many different paths to success, and that there are many different ways for you to frame success, right? And so, I think it's really about understanding for yourself what success looks like and the various paths that you can take to get there. I think that, typically students who believe themselves, to be entering into a different space may choose a JD MBA, right? I think there's some value to that in the marketplace, and that the market supports maybe getting both of those degrees, but you can be successful with any of the dual degree options that we have out there. Does Wayne offer programs and externships for students who are interested in fashion, entertainment, and IP law? So not specifically that narrowly tailored, right? Mostly because that's a little bit more niche of a space, right? So there isn't as much out there as it relates to opportunity in that space. But working with our career and professional development office, they will absolutely support that ambition and do their best to connect you with the opportunities that are out there in that space to help you continue to chart your path forward. Do you accept students with a lower LSAT than what is required for admission? So there is no required LSAT for admission. It is that holistic review process, as I talked about, with the various factors that we consider when making that decision. And then, so I guess to make a long story short, we accept students with different levels of LSAT performance, again, because what we're looking for is a class of whole people. And we are making those holistic decisions. And so we'll have students with various LSAT scores in our class. Are there any sports and entertainment law courses or externships? So yes, there are some sports and entertainment law courses available, not as much in the externship space, but there could be opportunity in the corporate counsel externship, maybe, right, to work with some of the sports organizations in the city, the Pistons, the Red Wings, the Lions, right? So different opportunities there as well. Letters of recommendation, are they made to anyone in particular? Anything particular that should be included? So letters of recommendation are not made out to anybody specifically, but what they should include is a strong recommendation, right, from the person who you have tapped to make that recommendation. My advice to people when they're trying to source recommenders is to very candidly ask the person that they're seeking that recommendation from, hey, can you write me a strong letter of recommendation for law school? Because it provides an opportunity for them to let you know whether or not they can, and gives you an opportunity to pivot and seek someone who may be in a position to do that. Can you speak into opportunities on becoming involved with government and policy? I think one of the great opportunities is through the Levin Center, like we talked about. That provides a great opportunity and a great platform for you to be able to, do some of that work. I think we've got, at the government and policy level in the state, some of the folks who are out here doing it at the highest levels have some connections to Wayne Law. Think about Jocelyn Benson, who's the former dean of the law school, right? Dana Nessel, right? So all of these folks have connections to Wayne Law in some way. And so, there's some opportunity out there and some really high flyers that have a Wayne Law connection. So our bachelor's degrees from online schools like Purdue Global looked at any differently? I think that what we're looking for in the process is just signs of academic achievement, right? And so how that shows up can be in different places. I think what we're looking for is somebody who did well in whatever program they chose. So we don't necessarily look at that any differently. We just want to see signs of academic achievement and excellence. Do addendums sound like excuses when considering a student for admission? I think that if you are using the addendum to make excuses, right, then the addendum will sound that way. I think if you've got, a really good reason why things are the way they are in your application that will provide some meaningful context to the committee, then I think it makes sense. If you don't have great reasons, right, and you're just submitting the addendum because you feel an obligation to explain away a thing that doesn't necessarily smile well upon you in the process, then it will sound like that. But I think you should be thoughtful about how you frame those and how you submit them so that you're sharing the best version of yourself and really helping the committee better understand you. If someone talks about overcoming addiction and their involvement with NA in their personal statement resume, will that be looked down upon? No, it will not. There are lots of different stories that get told in personal statements. I think that stories of overcoming significant challenge, right, and moving forward in your life are absolutely things that we like to see in our personal statements, right? And so if that's your story and you want to tell it, you can absolutely do that. I've had a major career shift and would like to explain why, but my personal statement doesn't relate to that. How to fit that into my app? I, I think that that's really, I don't know if you necessarily need to explain why you're choosing a different career. But if you're choosing to do that and there's a reason for it that's related to law school, I think maybe you should think about how to work it into a personal statement. Or if you want to do it as a diversity statement, right? Because we do accept those as well. Right here, here's the thing about me that makes me unique and different than other applicants. And here's sort of the story behind that. I think you could do it in that space as well, one page, double space, and provide that context. When should we expect to receive acceptance letters if we applied as early as possible? If you applied early in the process, you may receive an update on your status as an applicant as soon as mid to late January. That is when we start issuing and rendering those decisions, and we will communicate with those who applied earliest to us first. Do you have virtual tour options currently due to COVID-19? So we are in the final stages of wrapping up and preparing our virtual tour, and hopefully we will have that done sometime by around the holiday. So definitely check back with us early next year, and we should have that ready to roll for you all to enjoy. Does Wayne Law offer any concentration or courses that offer insight into real estate development and land use? Absolutely. You can take courses in that space if you would like to as a part of your program, and we're proud of the faculty and the courses that we offer in that space. I'm a single mother in Traverse City. Our virtual class is an option for at least the first year until I'm able to move to Detroit. So the answer to that question is maybe. It just depends on what happens with the world around us, right? Our curriculum has been offered remotely this academic year, but that could change next year, and we could find ourselves in a position to offer classes in person. And in that capacity, we may not be in a position we may not offer them virtually, which would require you to move to Detroit or at least commute to the building to take those courses. So it's something to consider if you're looking at that choice. Do I have to leave my full-time job to do externships if I'm doing the part-time path? You may have to make some difficult choices, right, in terms of how you balance your time and those requirements. Not suggesting that it is easy, but you may have to make some difficult choices in this process. So that is something that once you're in, you can work with our career professional development office to see what you can make work. but there's a possibility, right? You may have to make some different choices to get that done. How does the admissions committee use information from the question about the other law schools you are applying to help the other law schools you are applying to help make an admissions decision? We don't make admissions decisions based on where else somebody is going or applied to. We're evaluating you based on what we see in front of us and how we believe you'd be a fit for us as a law school. If where else you apply doesn't really factor into those decisions. Uh, as an older law student, I'm wanting to know the age range of new applicants. Is there an OWL group at Wayne State Law School? Not particularly sure what OWL is. If the group doesn't exist and you're admitted to Wayne Law, you can absolutely create it. Our age range can be anywhere from in the 20s to the 60s, right? Just depends on the application pool and who all are interested in going to law school. But if you are an older law student, you'll absolutely find a home at Wayne Law, and we'd love to have you all as a part of our class. Are there specific topics that we should write about in our personal statements? We don't dictate the topics that you write about in your personal statement. I typically encourage students who maybe are finding some challenge in what to write about to think about two important questions, right? Who you are and why you're here, and use the personal statement to sort of tell that story. To be even more sort of prescriptive, right? I encourage students to think about 2 or 3 things that the admissions committee absolutely has to know about you to make an informed choice about your fit for law school and Wayne Law, and using the personal statement, right, again, to tell that story and build those things out. How will Wayne Law ensure opportunities for incoming students in terms of internships, externships during such unprecedented times? We can't ensure anything, right? I think that our Career and Professional Development Office will continue to work diligently to provide opportunity and create space for our students to do the things and the work that they want to do. And we haven't seen, attrition in terms of the kinds of opportunities that are out there, but they will continue to work with you all to help you get the professional experience and exposure that you'll need to be successful both as a student and as a professional. How many students do you plan on admitting versus how many apply? Is any extra consideration given to current residents of Detroit? So the number of students that we admit changes every year versus how many we apply. It's really about the strength of the class, right? If we've got a really strong class, then we may admit more, right? If the applicant pool maybe isn't as strong, and maybe we aren't in a position to extend as many offers, or maybe it's vice versa, right? Maybe it's really competitive, and so we can't admit nearly as many people, right? And maybe the class isn't as strong. Maybe the applicant pool isn't as strong, and so we have to submit more offers or extend more offers to yield a stronger class. But we aren't giving extra consideration to anybody from any particular place. Again, our priorities are pretty straightforward. We want to admit the most diverse, most qualified class that we can each year, and using the criteria that we've talked about, we look to make that decision. All right, so I'm particularly interested in the part-time program. Is it possible to take courses over the summer to complete the night program in 3 years? Also, if I start in the night program, is it possible to switch tracks midway? So it is possible to take some courses over the summer to finish the night program. Finishing it in 3 years will be really hard. I think that typically you should be prepared for 3.5, 4 years if you're planning to do it part-time. If you do start in the part-time evening program, it is possible to switch tracks, sort of mid-program. There are some conversations that need to be had to make sure that it's the right choice, right? And that you are setting yourself up to be successful and positioned to continue to be effective in the law school space. But it is absolutely possible. Can I talk a little bit about my personal experience in law school? That's a conversation maybe we should have a little bit offline. There are other questions that I want to make sure I get to, and that could take a little bit more time. So if you want to have a conversation with me about my own personal experience in law school, reach out to our office and we can absolutely set up a conversation to do that. Are less people applying this year due to COVID? No, more people are applying this year. I think due to COVID, because more people are thinking about going back to school and taking advantage of this opportunity. I think some of that also has to do with the economy as well. What percentage of graduated students find full-time jobs in the Metro Detroit area? I would say many, if not, I would say most, if most of our students tend to stick around this area and pursue jobs in this space. And that is where the great bulk of our alumni network is, and our students who graduate are as well. My GPA for my first 4 semesters is much lower than my GPA in my final 5 semesters. Uh, my final 5 semesters include the high level courses, and I believe this is more indicative of the student I am. Should I submit an addendum highlighting this? You're absolutely free to submit an addendum that sort of frames that out and puts that into perspective for the committee as well. And that would be a good use of one, saying, hey, these were the reasons why maybe I wasn't as successful my first 4 semesters, but in my final 5 semesters, here's how I did. When we're looking at an applicant and their GPA, we're also looking at trends in performance, right? The rigor of the program and the institution, right? To help frame out our thinking about what that GPA means. So we'll definitely be looking at that anyway. But if there's some context that you believe an addendum could provide that maybe we couldn't just glean, right, from the fact that you were a better student at the end than the beginning, feel free to submit that. How many people approximately have already applied? I would say we are about a third of the way, maybe a quarter of the way through our process in terms of the number of applicants that we would traditionally see. And we expect the pace to continue to be a little higher than it has been in years past. So, all right. So I'll leave a second here for maybe one more question. If anybody's got a question, feel free to pop it in the Q&A, and we'll treat that as the last question, and then we will wrap things up for the evening, as I want to respect everybody's time. So last call on questions. Anybody else got a question? I'm 28 years old, very passionate. I want to get into your program. Where do I start? Blair, that's a really big question, and it's probably a question better answered in a conversation between the two of us. So I would encourage you to reach out to our office and schedule some time for you and I to chat so that we can help you get yourself on the right track and be able to do what you need to do to position yourself for success overall. I saw this was being recorded. Is this going to be emailed out to those who attended? The answer to that question is yes. Do you need to purchase CAS if you are only applying to Wayne and have transcripts already? Answer to that is yes as well. All right, so we're going to close things there. I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Good luck with your application process. If I've encouraged you to reach out to us, I'm serious about it. So for those of you who had very specific questions that I wasn't able to answer in this format or in this space, please do reach out to us so that we can schedule some time to chat. I also want to thank my genies behind the screen, my Wizards of Oz, as it were, Kaylee Place in our communications office, my colleague in our office, Jill Burnett Maurice, who helped me execute these and helped me execute tonight's programming. Again, thanks to our guests. Yeah, my producer, exactly. So thank you to them, and thank you to our guests. I look forward to continuing to talk with you all in the future, and have a great night.